Tonight, on The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown, Raul Julia gets driving, gets waiting, and gets bloodthirsty. Roll the intro. Hello, boys and girls. This is your old friend RJ City, and I'm back with another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown, where I take one artist and find one work of theirs that I like, one that I don't, and one that not many people may know about. And since last week we talked about Christopher Lloyd and the Addams Family, I would be remiss if I did not make this week about one of my favorite actors of all time, Raul Julia. He was born Raul Rafael Julia in 1940 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He took an early interest in Shakespearean theater, doing a lot of local plays, before he was convinced by a vacationing Orson Bean to move to New York. Once there, he took lessons from Win Handman alongside fellow student Christopher Walken. He worked his way through Off-Broadway and on before landing a recurring role on the third season of Sesame Street as Raphael the Fix-It Man. While his theater work is extensive and acclaimed, he is perhaps best known for his few major film works like Gomez Addams and the Addams Family and Addams Family Values, and M. Bison in the bizarrely now beloved Street Fighter. But we will start with one of his early films, as my pick for the good is 1976's The Gumball Rally. It is a road race comedy starring Michael Sarrazin, Norman Burton, Raul Julia, and Gary Busey. Michael Sarrazin is a wealthy, eccentric candy maker, and when he says the word gumball, an eclectic array of racers assemble in all kinds of vintage cars to compete in a no-rules, coast-to-coast road race from New York City to California. So most of the movie cuts back and forth between the racers and the odd things that happen to them on the road. Raul plays Italian racing Lothario Franco Bertolini. He makes multiple stops during the race to seduce various women. There are definite shades of a young Gomez Addams here, and you can clearly see how well his dramatic chops can play in a comedy. It's not the greatest movie of all time, but it's fun and it has some great action driving sequences, especially if you love old cars, and most importantly, Raul is fucking fantastic. This is one of the first movies in that whole racing comedy genre, alongside films like Cannonball Run and Smokey and the Bandit, so basically anything with Burt Reynolds. And it's gone on to inspire actual Gumball Rally races, including ones across multiple states in America and multiple countries in Europe. So if you want to see Gary Busey in a Camaro, this is the movie for you. So the good was the Gumball Rally, and the bad is one of the most infamous failures of all time. It's Francis Ford Coppola's 1982 musical, One from the Heart. Coppola had already made The Godfather Part 1, The Godfather Part 2, and Apocalypse Now, so why he thought the logical follow-up was a big-scale musical, I do not know. Nevertheless, it stars Frederick Forrest, Terry Garr, Raul Julia, Lane Kazan, and Harry Dean Stanton. Frederick and Terry are a husband and wife who break up in Vegas on their 5th wedding anniversary. They then go off and have one-night stands with different people. Frederick with a circus performer, and Terry with Raul Julia, a waiter who claims to be a lounge singer and a pianist. I shouldn't have to tell you that Raul's scenes involve masterful seduction and dancing, but the whole movie is rather dull, especially when you consider the gigantic scale of its productions and the financial horrors that ensued. The movie initially started off at MGM and was supposed to be a romantic comedy musical. They offered Francis Ford Coppola $2 million just to direct. Francis wanted to do something more ambitious, so he turned down the offer, and then he bought the film from MGM to produce it himself, but still kept MGM on as a distributor. He inflated the budget from $15 million to $23 million and shot most of the movie on sound stages, using miniatures and full-scale replicas of parts of Las Vegas and McNamara Airport. Not to mention an original soundtrack by Tom Waits. The project became so ambitious, however, that during production, investors and MGM pulled out. so Coppola had to seek more funding and sell the distribution rights to Paramount. Coppola then held a screening in San Francisco of the unfinished print, and that went so poorly that more investors pulled out, and Paramount decided not to screen it for any Oscar consideration. Coppola then held another screening, this time in New York, with the same result. Even though it was already now booked in theaters, Paramount pulled out, so Coppola had to make a last-minute distribution deal with Columbia Pictures. So how did it do at the box office? Well, of an ultimately $26 million budget, it made back $636,796. It put Coppola and his studio into bankruptcy, and most of the films he did for the next decade were done with the explicit purpose of just getting him out of the red. In hindsight, with modern movies like La La Land, there's clearly a lot to like in One from the Heart, just not all of it. However, if you want to see giant, unnecessary set pieces, this is the movie for you. So the good was Gumball Rally, the bad was One from the Heart, and the unknown is an unknown and also a what could have been. It is the Broadway version of Dracula. The original Dracula play was written in 1924 as an adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel. It toured England before making its debut on Broadway in 1927, starring Bela Lugosi. Naturally. Of course, Dracula has been adapted and remounted in so many different ways, but there was a Broadway revival of the original version in 1977, starring Frank Langella. It won the Tony Award for Best Revival and, of course, led to a 1979 movie version starring Frank Langella and Laurence Olivier. However, Frank's understudy during this run, who ended up taking the role of Dracula over from him, was Raul Julia. Unfortunately, other than these photos, no footage of the production exists. There is one review from the Washington Post which calls this the pleasantest Dracula of them all, and says of Raul Julia's performance, Raul Julia is a monumental and charismatic Dracula, not a silly figure with blood dribbling on his chin. One cannot easily condemn a man who wears evening clothes so well, even if he is discovered to have socially unacceptable habits. Could you possibly imagine an alternate universe where Raul Julia ended up playing the Dracula role on Broadway before Frank Langella, and then he went on to do the Dracula movie with Laurence Olivier? Could you have fantasy casted a better Dracula in your life? No, you could not. So close your eyes and imagine what could have been. Tragically, Raul passed away far too young in 1994, and then New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani officially declared November 21st as Raul Julia Day. So mark it in your calendars. I am RJ City, and this is what I've chosen to do with my life.
Guests of the RJ City Show, subscribe to his channel, follow him on social media, and buy his t-shirts at prowrestlingtees.com/RJ City.